Well, hello again. Hey, we're beginning to make this a regular habit, but I hope that's a good thing and not a bad thing. Well, have you seen that commercial on TV that it's an attorney, it's Larry H. Parker? Do you remember what his pitch is, what he says? He basically wants to be our advocate. He gives the impression that he'll make his battles or our battles his battles. And then he says that he will fight for us. Well, I wonder if Larry took his cues from the name of God that we have selected for today, the name Jehovah Sabaoth, the one who will fight for you. Jehovah Sabaoth in the Septuagint is known as Kyrios Sabaoth, the Lord of hosts. And when the word is used about human warfare, it's referring to the massing together of troops for a military force. Now, when I think of the military forces and troops, I look back to the one of the generals that was well known in America's history, General George Patton, successful military commander. He became the first officer assigned to a new U.S. Army tank corps during World War I. And then during World War II, Patton led the U.S. Seventh Army in its invasion of Sicily to wipe across northern France at the head of the Third Army in the summer of 1944. Well, late that same year, Patton massed forces, went forward and played a very key role in defeating Germany in a counterattack at the Battle of Bulge. Now, after that, he led the troops across the Rhine River into Germany and captured about 10,000 miles of territory, liberating the country from that Nazi regime. Jehovah Sabaoth is also used in reference to the massing of troops, massing, better said, the angels who are regarded as forming Jehovah's army, led not by George Patton, but Jehovah himself. Well, as General Patton massed his troops for battle there in Sicily and to liberate France, the Lord assembles his armies to fight his cause on earth to protect his people. This name of God describes God's universal sovereignty over every army, both spiritual and earthly. It is staggering to consider over the history that all created agencies and forces, both in heaven and on earth, throughout all of time, were and are under the leadership of the domain of Jehovah Sabaoth. He not only made them, he maintains them. And this name expresses Yahweh's great power. The name appears in connection with the movement of Jehovah in the times of national crisis for Israel. There are several passages that express this idea that the Lord of hosts, as the King of all heaven and earth, fights our battles. Now, I don't know what type of battle you're in right now. From where does your strength come from is the question. What do you put your trust in during battles, spiritual or physical? The thought expresses in this name is a divine assistance available to God's people in their hour of need. So Jehovah Sabaoth is the guide and the guardian of his people. This is a name we want to remember. In our social times, with all of the hate and the anger and the gun violence, the death, the depression, social media sites, TV news, and more are broadcasting this type of information. I'm not saying it's all true, I'm just saying it's being broadcast. Now, if you look in Isaiah chapter 31, verses 1 to 4, you want to follow along if you've got your scriptures there as we move through the passage. That would be helpful because really this is a long passage to read in a very short devotional. But I will highlight many of the verses that we need to use to understand the passage itself. So if you look at it in verse 1, you will find The words woe. Woe is a threat from God. Woe to the sinful nation of Israel. Woe to those who do what? Might be a question you ask. Well, the answer is those who would go down to Egypt to find their help. It appears that Judah is walking here by sight and not by faith. They're involved in two sins at least, and one is trusting in the military might of Egypt. And then second is not trusting in the Holy One of Israel. No, they were relying on the horses and on the chariots, the trust in the strength of the men and the horses, but they do not seek the Lord, nor do they even look his way. Well, verses 2 to 5 will tell you that God will intercede. Though Judah could not see past what they saw of the immediate solution, God would show them he is not impressed with man's might. Isaiah lays out several reasons why Judah should trust in God rather than in Egypt. Well, here's some of them. God is wise and powerful, capable of judging, and will bring disaster. He is also one who rises up against evildoers, Egypt, and all of those who trust in Egypt. And then number 3 would be something like the Egyptians are men and not God. On top of that, number 4 would be that the horses are flesh, not spirit. Well, the Lord of hosts will come down on Zion. Again, their trust in Egypt for protection against the Assyrian invasion was both foolish and unnecessary. God would protect Mount Zion if Judah trusted him or not. Well, verse 5 is really neat. The word picture there is wonderful. Like birds flying about, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. The picture is of a mother bird protecting her young. And so God will defend Jerusalem with the fierceness of a lion and yet the tenderness of a bird. The combination of the two is a wonderful image and very powerful. Let me read to you what one commentator said, commentator Poole. He says this, as birds flying that come from above, and so it cannot be kept away. It flies swift and engages themselves valiantly and resolutely when they perceive that their young ones are in imminent danger. So it is with Jehovah Saboath. The Lord of hosts will be strong as a lion that growls over its prey, and yet he will be as sweet and as soft and as gentle as a mother bird. Well, here's some questions for you to finish off the afternoon or morning, whatever it is that you're viewing this devotional as. Ask yourself this. In a time such as this, or a time of battle, a few questions. When battle comes, what is your usual response? Second question, who or where do you turn for help and why? And then does something need to change in your reaction to battles that you face, either physical or spiritual? And if something does need to change, what needs to change? What is it? Well, until an opportunity for us to connect again in this way, let your heart continue to look at Jehovah Saboath for protection in these times we're in today.